Greetings Internet and welcome to Aaron Plays, and I hope you're feeling fantastically well. In this episode I'm going to be doing SPI's 1972 Moscow strike and counterstrike. So it's the last push by the Wehrmacht to capture Moscow before winter sets in 1941. About 6 weeks ago, maybe a month, no, 2 months, give or take, I received this in the post, bought it on eBay, and I did technically an unboxing, I suppose, look through, and I'm going to continue that now. I've set up the map. I've got all the counters sorted, ready to set up on the map as well, and I intend to do the first scenario. Scenario 1. Allegedly it says there's 24 in there, and there is a list of 24. I don't know how different they are from each other, but this uses a similar system to the France 1940, where you've got different organizations and setups, different counters and different oppositions, and you've got to mix and match. I'm going to play the purely scenario 1, which is the historical German setup and the Soviet historical setup and the German and Soviet historical reinforcements, and it's 8 turns long, so it covers late September. I think the first turn is September 30th to 2nd of October, and then measure victory from there. I'm not sure if it's going to be brilliant from memory. I mean, it got me into the hobby, so there must have been something there. How it stands up compared to modern designs, no idea. We shall see as we play. And once I complete that 8-turn scenario, I might say, you know what, let's redo it, or redo. There's 31 turns in the whole campaign. I can't see me doing 31 turns, but who knows? I might get bitten again, like I obviously did back in the day. So let's go down to the map and have a look and see what's going on. Not much at the present moment. It's completely empty and devoid of units, but that's the full map from the German side. So when I'm playing this, I intend to... I did have the map sideways on, and it just didn't look right. All the charts are here for the Russians or Soviets at the other end. Each side has its own combat results table. They are different. And you've got the reinforcement schedules here and over there for the Russians. So I think I'm going to play, when I'm playing the German side, I'm going to sit this side, and then I'm going to switch the board round and then play it from the Russian point of view. So the front line is here, along this line here, for September 30th, and Moscow is there. Sorry about the light, it's winter, not much I can do about it reflecting on the perspex. As it's a paper map, I needed the perspex to make it lie flat. Swings, roundabouts. The Mistron light should be behind the German front line anyway. We're moving units up here. I'm going to do the first scenario. There are 24 in here, and I'm going to do the historical one. I think I might mention that a little bit earlier, and that is derived. I'll find it. It's in here. There we go. So it tells me on this booklet the 24 scenarios. It tells me game turns 1 to 8. It tells me the start line, Soviet order of battle, which is relevant to that little thing right at the back there. That is a list of the different Soviet. I think there's 3 in total, so I'll be using Soviet order battle 1, German order of battle A, okay, and German reinforcement option U. A is defined at the bottom of this as historical September of battle and historical reinforcements. What that actually means on, I'll just move myself back on here. This is, yeah, I'm hand holding the camera now. Okay, what units I get for for the Germans, and then on the actual reinforcement schedules, wherever I see the letter U, I'll get that. So won't be getting this unit, but we'll be getting that. And I think, yeah, there's nothing else with a U on it, so for the first 8 turns. So what I'm going to do is set up the Soviet units and go through why I set them up where and what for. Then I'll set up the German units and do the same. And then discuss what are the strategy, the victory conditions, the basics of the rules. Most of you will be very familiar with these kind of, SPI, you've got movement, combat, mechanized movement phase and such forth. And then play the game. This video will be the setup discussion like we're just doing now, and that'll be the actual next video will be the start of the game. And I might do 1 or 2 turns depending, because I haven't made up my mind yet if I'm going to have on camera me moving every single counter, or if I'll say, right, this is the start, then I'll switch the camera off, move all the bits, and then resolve the combats on camera, and then maybe the mechanized movement phase. I don't know. It all depends how engrossed I get and if you guys are interested. But by the time I release this, I probably might even finish the game. So, because I'm doing this at the same time as I've finished Caesar's Legions, but I haven't released all the videos for it. So if you're watching this now, Caesar's Legion should have finished, but I've probably shot about 4 or 5 turns of this, theoretically. So let me set up the Soviet units and let's have a look what they look like. And that's the Soviets set up. Now, this grey line being the front line, not allowed to set up on the front line, but every hex of the front line must be in a Soviet controlled hex. I just realised this one isn't. So, that hex isn't. So we've got to put something there. So I'll tell you what, let's put them forward, move them forward. There we go. So every hex must be in a Soviet controlled. Stacking limit's 3 units, and you can see these are all quite weak. They're all 1-4s or 1-1s or 1-10s. So there's nothing big stacking wise, strength wise. These I've marked with white cubes are the Soviets are allowed to set 8 units up that aren't within 8 hexes of the front line, and those are the 8 units. So I can remove those now. It was just a reminder to myself, really. So yeah, so they've got a front line, then they've got a second line behind fortifications. These EB units can only move by rail. They can repair rails. They've got their defense values in the brackets. That means they can only defend. The armored units, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. Yeah, they've got square brackets. That means they can attack and defend with that value, but only if stacked with a unit that doesn't have a bracketed value. Most of the Soviet tank force has been shattered in the earlier frontier battles. Terrain, woods, river, front line, fortifications. Yeah, I think that's pretty much. I mean, there is some swamps as well over here. So I'll put a front line of pretty much 3 strength in each hex. Is that going to be good enough? I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. Overrun. You must get. There are overrun rules, but it's like you need 11 times the amount. So to overrun a hex with a strength of 3, there must be 33 strength in or adjacent. That's going to be very tricky. Very tricky. So next up, we've got to set up the Germans. And they must also have a continuous front. And of course, they've got less units, but they're a little bit more powerful. So I'm going to set them up now, and then we'll talk about why I set up the Germans the way I have. So the Soviets have got to have a front line. They've got to effectively stop the Germans getting there. Their reinforcement rate is better. Not fantastic, but it's better. And as I say, I'm planning to do the first 8 turns. So let's set up the Germans. And that's the Germans set up. So I wasn't sure where I was going to attack from as the Germans. Hence why I set the Soviets up, expecting the German attack anywhere. And then just rolled off camera. I was going to do I did 1, 2, a northern attack, attacking through here. 3, 4, a centre attack, attacking straight forward. And a 5, 6, boom, attacking from the south. Well, as you can see by the massed German units there, they're coming from the south. They're heading this way. Okay, southern drive to Moscow. That was the only way I could do it, because you know me with playing these games solo. I don't like to set up a whole defence knowing where the attack's going to be coming from. So there we go. So we've got all the German panzers are grouped here and here. I'm hoping to achieve an overrun on a couple of these hexes and see if we can create a couple of pockets moving forward. And that's it. It's ready to go. Let's begin turn 1 in the next video. So let me just bring this up and have a quick chat about the rules and such forth, and that will be the end of this one. Let's just go through these. There's not a lot to them. Sequence of play, quite straightforward. We have a German player turn, then a Soviet player turn. The German player turn is made up of an initial movement phase, then a combat phase, and then a mechanized movement phase. Whereas the Russians just get a movement and a combat. They don't get the mechanized movement phase. Movement is that standard SPI. Movement points can't be accumulated from turn to turn, you know, or transferred from unit to unit. They're all there. Then you can't go through an enemy hex. Moving stacks, zones of control. Soviets have got rail movement. Germans don't. Zones of control are the standard sort of things, all 6 hexes, unless it's a prohibited terrain. You don't stop necessarily on a zone of control, but it costs 3 movement points to move into an enemy zone of control, 3 additional movement points, so whatever terrain there is, and then 2 additional movement points to leave an enemy zone of control. So when they're sticky. And if you move directly from one controlled hex to another, that's 5 additional movement points. So you're not going to have much. I mean, the Germans' mechanized units have got 8 movement points. There is a minimum move. Units may move at least one. It can move 1 hex. The unit may, unless otherwise indicated, always move 1 hex, even without being able to expend sufficient movement points, unless it's moving directly from one enemy zone of control to another. So yeah, no sneaky working your way through that. Zones of control do extend into enemy hexes, but they do not stop supply going through there. They do slow down the movement still, but they don't stop supply. Then you've got the terrain effects. So this is one of the things that was on the errata in this, because for the terrain it says add 2 for combat. Well, it's all subtracted 2, but most things are 1 movement point for infantry. The only sort of additional one is 3 movement points for mechanized go through woods or swamps. Stacking, 3 units per hex no matter what. Supply. Okay, the supply rules. So to be able to use their full combat strength, units must be in supply. And supply is determined at the beginning of the movement. So you can move, then be out of supply, then bring yourself back into supply, but at the instant of combat. So if you can cut off a route, you can put an enemy unit out of supply if you cut its supply routes. The German units must be within 12 hexes of a rebuilt rail line. Now they've got 3 of these EB, which are rail repair units, and it mentions that the actual hexes, the rail lines, are darker than the ones that have been converted. Well, I must admit, either the glasses, the perspex or the light, I can't really tell. Different shades of rail line. I suppose back in the day they didn't have that many different colours that you notice. The trees are blue, the rivers are blue. So I'm struggling to see the difference. Oh, actually, my goodness, it is a very subtle shade, but all right, okay, I've got it. All right. So as they advance these EB units, which I don't know what the definition of EB is, I presume it says somewhere in the rules. Of course it does. Eisenbahnbautruppen. So as they move those units, they improve the rail line going forward. All Soviet units must trace a path no more than 6 hexes in length back to a rail line. But considering they've got more rail behind them, it should be okay. The effects of supply are units' defense and attack and movement are hard. And units are not eliminated for being out of supply. So yeah, you can create pockets, but you're going to have to basically take out the units to do so. Combat is your standard odds table, get the units around and go there. There's no forced combat. You're not, because you're in a zone of control, like in Enzio, where you moved up to an enemy, you had to attack it. You don't have to attack in this. But again, the standard, you can only attack once, one unit, and stacks don't have to. So units from different stacks. Sorry, I'll start again. Unit in the stack, one could attack one way, one could attack another way. Again, standard stuff. There is overrun, which we'll go through because the Germans are going to be doing some. And it's primarily the Germans that will be doing some. So once we're actually playing, I'll explain the overrun rules. They're quite interesting. There's a continuous line rule. Because the front line goes beyond what's physically shown on the map, there must be a continuous line from north to south, either controlled hexes or actual combat units. And if you don't maintain that, either side, you get a victory. The opponent gets a victory point per hex side. It's not maintained. So it could be expensive. There's fortified lines that's shown on the map by these things. There's special rules for attacking those. We'll go through that in detail when the Germans get to them, because only the Soviets have those. Rail movement, only the Soviets can do rail movement, and I think they can move up to 9 units by rail. And again, it's quite a novel little way that they do the rail movement. We'll come to it when we get there. Rail repair, both sides can do it. It's using these, as I went through, the Eisenbahnbautruppen. And any Germans out there, I do apologise if I bastardised your language. And there's certain things, the Soviet ones are a lot more flexible. I'll say that much, and we'll come through to that, what they do. You get rail cuts and supply heads, and that's pretty much it. There's the victory conditions. Basically, you get a lot of victory points where you get 1 victory point per combat strength point that you take out. So a German 2-5 division is worth 2 victory points to the Soviets. A Soviet 1-4 is worth 1. The Russians also get 2 victory points for each enemy armor or motorized combat strength point eliminated, and 3 victory points for the Russian player for each combat strength point of a German Kampfgruppe eliminated. If they actually manage to take out Kampfgruppe as well, I guess expensive. Then it's getting units to Moscow. Well, I'm playing the first 8 turns, so I can't see me getting close to getting those victory points for Moscow. And the Russians get victory points if they actually cross the initial start line to the west. Then there's levels of victory. So each player totals up the total they have achieved, and then it's done as a ratio. As a ratio of the German victory points to Soviet victory points. If it's 1-to-1 or less, so the Soviets get a decisive victory. Even at a 3-to-1 ratio or less, the Soviets get a marginal victory. So the Germans got to get more than 3-to-1 ratio of losses and other victory point purposes to get a German marginal. More than 4-to-1, substantial. More than 6-to-1 ratio, German decisive in the 8 turns. So yeah, getting to Moscow is 50 victory points, but we're only playing the first 8 turns in this. And that's it. So I know I gave a brief run through the rules. I will be going through a lot more detail as I'm playing, of specifics. I just wanted to give you an overview of what's going on. And yeah, it's all set to go. I hope you're looking forward to it. I know I am. So until next time, play games, have fun. If you've got this game and never played it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought. I said this is the game that started this wild ride that I've been on since I was 12 years old. I'm 58. So it's been a while. And this is the game that done it. So it bit me at the time, and I went, yeah. Why did it bite me? Well, I'm about to really find out. And it might not. I might play it and go, yeah, things have moved on a lot, haven't they? But you never know. I read a few comments on BGG, and a lot of people are saying, yeah, time has moved on. And some players are going, this is still good. And the only way I'm going to find out is do it. And the only way some of you are going to find out is watch me do it. Play games, have fun. Until next time, internet. Bye.